This morning, joining us also is party leader, PDP, also aspiring senator for Kisii County, also the chair of the Center for Multi-Parties Democracy. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Omingo Magara.
Thank you,
And of course, we have Kipruto Arap-Kirwa, who's the deputy party leader of the Amani National Congress. Thank you also for joining us here on the show. So we have been speaking about nominations that are due to start today, and I was just asking, what preparations have you made as ANC to ensure that this is going to be a successful one? Because nominations here in the country have always been a bit chaotic most of the times.
Yeah, we send our election board team to various counties to give us the feedback. And they've been consulting with party officials and also aspirants to see what is the most appropriate time for that. We're expecting results this evening, and we shall compile a list based on the requirements on the ground and the wishes of our members back home.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me go to you, Mr. Omingo. What is it going to take for you to have successful primaries this time round?
From where I see it as a chair for Center for Multi-Party Democracy, I think democracy starts with political parties. You cannot pretend to aspire to leadership of the nation if your house is not kept in order.
Right.
And most political parties would wish to conduct free, fair nominations. But there is a biggest challenge, Betty, that of capacity. And this we must accept. To the extent, therefore, that we must own up and say, if it's not working, should we get a better way to doing it than just saying we are doing a mock nominations, which sometimes are predetermined. As PDP, we are trying as much as possible to either give the certificates to candidates who have actually applied, and of course they think like as a small political party you do not attract crowd.
Yes.
And therefore we are lucky in the sense that we are not having such kind of a crowd, to the extent that I'm also even persuading aspirants like ladies who cannot get space in those so-called political parties,
Right,
that most often than not you don't get fairness, to come across over here where we also sieve and determine people in terms of merit and of course compliance with the two-third gender. And that's how we're going to assess political parties in terms of where they comply or they don't. So from where I see it, I feel that this a desired thing for every political party to do nominations that are fair, but we do not have the capacity.
All right,
and
so
as much as we try, there are questions which still linger around us.
But for PDP, your strength right now lies into the fact that you're not having too many aspirants.
And that's what the avenue for, particularly the marginalized, the people with disabilities and ladies are welcome. And mostly when we get one, we actually nominate them direct without any competition.
So any female aspirant
those
will
who
get
have shown interest, we have preferred them.
All right, let me come to you, because ANC is a bigger party than PDP right now in terms of numbers.
Yes.
So how are you going to deal with those issues that come about with big numbers when it comes to political parties?
Yeah, that's exactly why we decided to send feelers to the ground, so that in areas where they're a bit crowded, we prepare logistics for that. But I want to concur with my colleague that political parties still got a lot of challenges, both in terms of logistics, capacity, and also resources, just like money and so forth. Also, we are yet to get to the culture of democracy, where people compete without an ill feeling or hatred after the nomination exercise. Because every nomination is very divisive, because as you know, in some areas where you get a candidate, it's almost automatic ticket to parliament or any other elective position.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about NASA and the fact that ANC is a big player in this National Super Alliance.
Yeah.
How are you going to deal with the issue of cannibalization? Because you have very strong candidates drawn from all parties in NASA contending for the same seat.
Yes. Yeah, NASA, as you know, is a coalition of parties. We are 4 anchor parties as of now, but other parties are still welcome in terms of getting to the platform of NASA. What we are realistic about is that there are some areas, even if we were to compete among ourselves, we do not run the risk of losing to our opponents on the other side.
Right.
There are also areas which are marginal, and those are some of the areas that we shall have negotiations, but we don't want to prejudge the decisions of various political entities. But after this nomination exercise, we shall see where we can negotiate, areas where we can risk, and areas where we failed, candidates against each other because we don't have the risk of losing to our opponents.
All right, let's take, for example, one is, of course, Kakamega, another one is Kisii, and, of course, also Mombasa, very strong candidates. How is that going to happen? They're always likely to see negotiations because most of the aspirants in these counties that I've mentioned, just a few of them, really want to go for that top seat.
We're going to look at each case and look at it on its own merit. A place like Kakamega, for example, without looking like preempting any discussions, there is no possibility of Jubilee ever winning any seat in that area, especially at the level of governor or senator. So we feel even if we are from the 4 parties, candidates running, we don't run the risk of losing that seat. In Kisii, it may be a different case because there are other friendly parties, and we are working with them. We'll be able to look at each case on its own merit. Mombasa has got its fair of challenges, and without really preempting whatever ODM is doing today, I think some of the discussions are in place for purposes of addressing that particular constituency. All right.
Yeah. Let's talk about rewarding of certain candidates. Today, Gladys Wanga was very early in the morning, probably even before the exercise began. She came out and said that she's very humbled and thankful that she was given a direct nomination. Are we likely to see fairness and democracy taking place in some of these areas?
When there is no capacity, and we must admit, I like what my brothers just said, that at the end of the day, there has to be negotiations and compromises. To the extent, therefore, that I'm not too sure what he calls an enemy party, because the enemy could be even the same people in the coalition who are scrambling for the same space.
Right.
But the realistic thing is, where it is not feasible, honestly, it's good to own up and say, we have lost on this one, can we now negotiate, for example? What I do not like for 1 minute is that you know for sure it's not going to be competitive, and then you tell everybody we're going to be competitive. You take money from 10 aspirants when you know for sure there's no capacity, and at the end of the day you may have to end up negotiating. You end up hurting people more.
Right.
I think the sooner or the earlier we agree and accept that it is not possible we can do it, we start a pre-negotiations so that we can tone down the temperatures and don't hurt people as they exit. From Kisii, where I come from, I think it is a very unique constituency. And from where I see it, it is not going to be a walk in the park. And that my brother here is saying they're working out around the clock. Unless we discuss, like I'm sure we need to discuss and share these kind of feelings, it's going to be a tall order. And don't be surprised that we have a password, some of us who are sitting closely out there, to give a solution to that particular constituency, who are very independent in voting. They do not go for a suit thing, but ideological thinking, and a person who promises to lead them somewhere. They don't follow. Usually, they are not euphoric. They are very, very objective, and for sure, give them an avenue for business, and there you are. So,
but that is just
should discuss with us on that score, and I'm sure we shall be the game changers there.
All right. Okay. You want to add something?
No, I just wanted to agree with him that Kisii constituency is very unique in the sense that they are very fairly independent. It is not about the size of the party. But what we have in NASA is that we allow each party to get to sift their members. And by the time we are negotiating, we shall have had each political party having dealt with their members. Secondly, this issue of calling it reward, all over the world, democracy provides that if you have a strong candidate, there is no need to subject the candidate to a bruising battle when you know at the end of the day it's going to be the same. It's only that here in Kenya, where democracy has not matured, that we subject somebody that we know is going to win. Now, like Mheshimiwa Magara, if he's friendly to us as NASA, and we have him in the ticket, we should be able to say, okay, let's allow Mheshimiwa Magara on his ticket to run, because we are going to be members of the same family.
All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Let's talk about dispute resolution. Like you mentioned, there's going to be quite a number of those. And you keep mentioning capacity. Do you think, even as PDP, do you have enough capacity to actually resolve some of the disputes that will arise? And also the part for IBC, because they are supposed constitutionally to be involved in it. Do you think they have the time to indulge in party business?
Would you allow me to talk about reward briefly, please, before I respond to the issue of dispute resolution? The critical thing is, we need to have identified the challenges before we walk into them. And more often than not, you find their political parties are very strong. I'll do whatever it takes to please my party leader and look perceptionally strong, because if my party leader points a finger, whether I'm in Kompupo or otherwise, I'll look or appear popular to my people.
Right.
So that is really not fairness. And you've had people who are sitting who have got challenges, and when they know their challenges who are more stronger, they become more warmer to my deputy party leader, for example, to look perceptionally popular. And if people points a finger to me, automatically I'm popular. So that reward is so skewed in terms of perception and depending on where the particular candidate comes from. In the issue of dispute resolution, as CDP, we have already a committee in place, but we anticipated these challenges, and we tried to solve them at the initial stages by actually prioritizing 1, 2, 3, and do an internal independent survey, and we go for those that we think are popular. So we have a dispute resolution in place. In fact, last Friday we resolved one very amicably, and I believe that we are going to have minimal of such because we anticipated this kind of challenges and forestalled them before we.
But generally speaking, from the Center for Multi-Party Democracy,
from CMD, it is a really, that's what I'm saying, this reward is not democratic because we are still cooled in a strong constituency for us as political parties. For example, if you talk about Luo Nyanza, with a tremendous respect, if you are given a ticket and you are perceived to be strong, not from the grassroots, but from the powers that be, for sure, you automatically be strong. And as I said, I agree that our democracy is not matured to the extent, therefore, that even when we want to assess, it is not serious objective, but based on how close one is to the big powers that be.
To the powers that be.
Well, I want to share with him, but with a bit of caveat, in the sense that in Luo Nyanza, there were a number of governors who won on tickets other than ODM in the last election, and also members of parliament that won in ODM, won in parties other than ODM. So I think democracy, the democracy is maturing, and I think even that party member, that governor happens to come from his party. So it is possible that even in the midst of ODM or Jubilee, there are certain unique cases. And also let me emphasize this. Parties have to learn to handle these primaries carefully. Today in our parliament, there are 68 members of parliament who never got fair treatment at the party nomination. They moved to other parties and they won their seats. Right. So it tells you that if parties are not careful, they are likely to run the risk of being rendered irrelevant. Number two, I'm happy there is a court ruling that if you don't treat a member very well, he can run or she can run as an independent candidate, and that will actually bring some bit of democracy to political entities. All right. Yeah.
Finally, as we wind up, I'd like you to comment about NASA says that they wanted a parallel tallying system for themselves from the Center of Multi-Party Democracy. What is your take on this?
Well,
is it a plus or a minus for the country?
To be honest with you, the management elections constitutionally belongs to the IEBC. What we can do, even as observers from where I sit, is to ensure that we observe and enrich the IEBC. But it's just like you're saying, and the overseer becomes the principal. You cannot detach the role of IEBC and give it to any other body outside the Constitution. Right. It is a positive thing to the extent, therefore, that IEBC need to be on watch because they are going to be on point, a mark. They're going to be marked. But it cannot remove that sole responsibility constitutionally from themselves. It's a good enrichment. And in fact, even in CMD, we are accrediting overseers or people to oversee elections, but they can only enrich and report cases of where there are malpractices. To the extent, therefore, that enrichment takes over the role of IEBC, I think it's going to be, could be a minus, but a positive thing in terms of keeping IEBC on watch.
They're saying that they've learned from the past mistakes, and what history has taught them before?
Well, I think before I prejudge the current commission, we cannot live in the past. Brothers and sisters of the Republic, we have this country as one. From wherever point you sit, after election, we must remain as one. And therefore, kind of predetermining the elections could be rigged like the other one, I think also sending a wrong signal to our electorates. Because if you don't respect the body you put in place, people will say, after all, I don't have to go and vote. After all, the elections have been rigged. Encourage our people to come and vote and watch your vote, because your vote counts. And as many as you are in that basket, the better for you, because then even the one who wants to steal cannot steal where the margin is impossible. But with the vote apathy, somebody can tilt the balances. So let's give IBC the credibility it requires before we punch holes, because it's us who put them in place. And we are collectively putting them in place. So let's also give them credence and support them for fair, credible nomination. Let's not live in the past.
All right, let me hear your sentiments.
Yeah, where I'm sitting, there are a number of issues that we need to consider. One, we still expect IBC to up their game, and also to make sure that the process that we enter is a process that is believable. Number two, this is a response to our supporters. In many places we go, they say, we are giving you the vote, but are you going to secure it? So the response by the Honorable Raila is to respond to them that we are going to secure the votes, and indeed we are going to do that. We do not want to replace IEBC whatsoever, but we want to make sure that we are also agents of our own votes. And also remember, the parallel tallying was done in Ghana. That's how the opposition won. And the results that were remitted by the opposition and the final results that were remitted by IBC of Ghana, well, the difference was so marginal that the truth was reflected by the tallying that was done, parallel tallying done by other people. So we are living in a country where every election there has been a bit of suspicion. We want to remove that suspicion so that if we lose squarely. If we win squarely.
All right, interesting. Yeah. Thank you so much for your comments. Kipruto Arap Kirwa, the Deputy Party Leader of ANC. Also, I had Omingo Magara, who's a party leader for PDP, an aspiring senator for Kisii County, and also the chair for the Center for Multi-Party Democracy. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time.